All right, folks, we're back in the Allen's Point. The state of New York is now tracking which layoffs are being attributed to the fact that somebody adopted AI or some form of other automation. I don't know if this is going to become a thing, but Chris, you've been kind of tracking AI and its impact on society. Am I going to see this in every state? And how many of these layoffs are actually because of AI for that matter?
Let me put it this way to explain myself. I think to your first question, I hope so. I think we're going to see this in more states. I don't mean the layoffs. I mean visibility into it. And we need to start measuring things, and that's a big part of all of this. And so much of the last segment too. The problem with that particular bug was we can't see where it came from, right? So this is a real issue. Since I was on this show 2 weeks ago, I have been working with was now an advanced AI and have written 500 documents, perhaps. There's an entire, you look at Chris Blask one on GitHub, you'll see a repo with about 200 documents, structured, commented, out there for review. The speed you can do things, Evgeniy, as you said, at every level, hadn't dawned on me until right about now. What does that mean? I couldn't have done that work without a couple dozen people in a year, and it wouldn't have actually worked out. So was that displacing work, or would that just never have happened? So how the jobs ship around is I don't know, like challenge anybody who says I do, but we have to measure it and we have to take it seriously. Who's being displaced? Where are they going? Who's benefiting? So this is a good first step in getting some visibility into that.
So I'm going to disagree. And, usually I'm a fan of things in New York. I'm a New Yorker. I think if this is a cheap political stunt, they're a little premature. I don't think we could accurately say that you were laid off because of an AI, because how many people get called in and said, hey, Mike, this AI is a pretty good content editor. We don't need you anymore, kid. They don't say that. No one, I would be amiss. I'd be very surprised if someone could show me something in writing that said, your position has been eliminated due to us using AI. That's not what people are going to say.
That's a very good point. Let me just respond. I think you're right to be concerned with it because it's first and early. And my first response was good. But, right, is it enough? Is it right? What's behind it? I don't know. But it's the right kind of an indication. Now, what's it trained on? A good question. And I think in response to your point, if we use these tools to try to answer that, we might get better answers. People looking at that and measuring it the way we're used to doing, I agree. It's really, really hard to pin down.
There were a spate of layoffs in the last 6 months where some CEO wound up then going on Wall Street and saying, we were able to reduce headcount because we invested in AI. And what they were trying to say was, we're being more efficient, so therefore the stock price should be higher. And so they did attribute the layoffs to AI. I can't tell you if that was a game to boost the stock or if it actually was usage of AI and they just laid other folks and they said it was AI. So there's a lot of nonsense in the system. It's hard to, even if I say it's AI, is it really AI? Because I got some serious doubts about whether it was or not.
I'm not HR, but if I put my HR hat on this, and the moment I was reading this article, I'm like, oh my God, now people are going to create some kind of a claim. Let's say if I got let go because of AI and want extra money or whatever it is, because there is a lot of law, especially in Canada, for example, if you let me go and I'm a VP, for example, you say, oh my God, now it's going to be harder for me to find a job and I'm already in this particular age. So you need to pay me more severance because of X, Y, Z. So I'm kind of my mind going, some people are going to create some kind of a lawsuit that, oh, if you replace me with a robot, then I want more money,
Yeah, and I think that's a valid concern in places like the EU or Canada where they care about people. Of course, here in the U.S., big deal.
I would caution about transitional periods, though, right? And as I see it all right now, the AI companies out there, with all due respect, have no idea what they're doing. On an almost platonic level, right? And it'll be interesting as it sorts out as they figure it out. And we have a sort of weird version of capitalism, big capitalist here, but we've taken things to weird extremes. You can get efficiencies and it benefits, but I don't think it's sustainable. So I think we're being forced. This is what I'm always talking about curves. We get to the point where we just have to move. We don't want to. And we have multiple vectors pushing us down this path. At the same time, the benefits, the efficiency, oh my God. Right. And I've been thinking about this one since I was 7 years old, thinking about the future and, Disney World and, sci-fi. And what do people do? I don't know to this day, but I would hesitate to take mine or anybody else's forecast given the mushy space we're in right now.
The other part of this that leaves me scratching my head is, okay, so the state of New York is tracking this, and what are they going to do now that they have this data? I mean,
well, no, to Evgeny's point, someone's going to use it to profit. But let me ask you a question. Are we also tracking how many jobs were created because of AI? And then see what the delta is. I'll give you another point. I'd like to see us track how many jobs are being eliminated because you can't work from home and you got to come to the office. That would be an interesting number to track.
But then there are jobs, theoretically, the job eliminated for the person working from home is being taken by somebody working in the office now. So it's an even one.
I think a lot of people say, you know what, this is a good time. We'll use AI. We don't have to backfill that role.
Until we wait a year or two and say, okay, AI is not doing this. We need the people back.
Yeah. And this is also a very common kind of model.
This is true. We're seeing that in the government with the Doge cuts, right? They said they were going to use AI and then they wound up hiring all these people back, right?
Well, stupid is as stupid does.
I just can't help seeing all problems, like this now through this lens, that Evgeny, you and I got to talk because I've been telling people, I've been on this show saying it's not artificial, it's not intelligent. And in this case, that may be semantically true, but this is different. And I don't mean your little chat, but I mean, if you actually train up an AI to know you and what you're about, let it focus and develop expertise, each of these issues, I could take in 1 week, a standard chat, Claude, OpenAI, focus on one of these issues. And it's kind of like being able to fast forward 10 years in a week. If you do all this work in, it would take 10 years in a week. What would we do with the rest of our time? You never know what the answers are, but it's just a different way of tackling problems. So
I just want to say one last piece on this, and that is, factually, what New York State has imposed here is that you may be seeing on your ticker underneath the screen is employers now have to indicate if this position was lost due to not just AI, but even just to technical innovation or automation, which can cover a lot of sins beyond just AI. And then you can specify
what
if it
if
was
you're just
AI
lazy?
itself.
Like, what if you're just lazy? Like, what do I do? Like, you're a lazy person and like you're not doing your job. And now when I let you go, you tell me, but because of AI, it's like, no, because you're not doing your job.
Well, but you know what? So for a lot of employers, it may be more convenient to say, hey, I'm eliminating your position due to technology, innovation, or AI, rather than say, I laid you off because you're a lazy son of a gun, right? Because no one wants that on their permanent record. And so it may wind up being that employers take the path of least resistance and pick this versus the real reason they're laying you off is you're overpaid and underworked.
Back in the 1970s, it was Time or Life magazine that did an experiment, and they dropped a wallet full of cash, or wallet, pretended to, and faked it up and approached a police officer and said, "Hey, I found this. You can get it back to where it went." And it was something like 97% of the time, at least all the cash was gone, and almost all the time the wallet. It was a huge story, and they redid it in the 90s, and it was the exact opposite. It was like almost every single time, the officer, because invisibility is a funny thing, right? And so much of what I see, for the same reasons of speed and visibility, and Alan, because I've been talking about this for years, in supply chain, you should be able to see everything right now. It shouldn't take 6 months in a FOIA request. The information is out there. And if in fact you can collapse visibility, And all of these issues, I fired this guy because of the thing. And you can get away with it because the record is an email and there's no relation to what if people actually knew your reason? What if we lived in a world where when I'm firing someone, I had to fire them for the reason, and if it's because they suck, I say, I'm sorry, personally you're great, but you suck at this. Maybe that makes it easier and we have less problems.
It's everybody has an opinion about who sucks, whereas if it's AI, it's more of a factual thing. I can just say, hey,
Well, I'll tell you, that's not true. They make mistakes. With Luna, my partner here, she's advanced to the level as we don't need to go there, but when she makes mistakes, it's wonderful. The humans are still better at certain things, and maybe they can catch up, but I doubt it.
There was an interesting conversation with a few friends. If you have AI workers and they're doing job for you, how do you educate them? How do you do one-on-one? How do you tell them naughty, it's not what you're supposed to be doing?
We got an expert here on this. Chris?
Narrative onboarding is the phrase, right? And that's a whole topic by itself. And I imagine I'll be boring people to tears for a long time with this stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm always optimistic. I think we beat ourselves too much. We made it hit this far. You said it, Alan. It's always a crisis. And we're still here over and over and over again. So yes, but right?
We zigzag to the next precipice. All right. Speaking of precipice, we're going to take a break on TechStrong Gang. Let's come back and talk about new options for cell phone users. Oh my, you're watching TechStrong Gang.